Once there lived a girl. That's about it. There was nothing particularly remarkable about this girl. No special powers or gifts, other than the fact she was alive, and very much so. And that was enough for her. She was happy. She was an ordinary girl, who lived with her mother and little sister in an old, quaint little town on the edge of the wood. The houses were modest, uneven, and peculiarly shaped, not built with precise measurements and meticulous planning, but rather with love and care for those who were to live there, and so they stood strong. The whole town was built this way. The houses were dotted seemingly randomly around the glade in which they built, linked by sprawling paths of mostly mud where they had run out of stone, with rickety market stalls in roughly the centre. Surrounding the town was an enchanting, ancient wood, lined with oaks, beeches, and birch, with space enough for all manner of creatures to peacefully live their modest lives. There was space in the undergrowth for the blackbirds, squirrels, and mice to forage amongst the leaves, revealing some of the bugs and worms that live beneath the soil. There was space for the owls, buzzards, and many other birds to glide between the pillars of beech, and for those small enough to thread through the bushes that ushered the silent deer through the network of natural paths. There was even room, deep in the wood, for a small cottage, ageless. Not in the sense that it looked new, but ageless in that it could not be accurately described as old or new, just that it had always been there. A bit like the trees. You don't often regard trees as old. They are just there. This cottage was home to a witch. She had not yet done anything to harm the townsfolk. In fact, she would occasionally do business with a few. But they were still very wary and cautious of her. Nobody quite knew where the cottage was, and the witch was scarcely seen. It seemed you could only find the cottage if you were looking for it, or if she was looking for you. The girl and her sister would often play together in the woods, sometimes enacting magical stories, or sometimes simply rummaging around in the undergrowth, looking for hidden flowers and mushrooms, and the strange insects that live between them. Though recently, they haven't been allowed to. There had been sightings of a monster in the woods. They said the witch in the wood had conjured up something evil. An abominable beast, larger than any bear, born of smoke and shadow, with huge blazing eyes like torches of hate. A group of men from the town ran away in fear of it. But one man could not escape its jaws of smog. He vanished from sight. He hadn't been seen since. Only a select few were allowed to enter the wood after that, but they couldn't go very far, and only if it was absolutely necessary. The sisters were disappointed they couldn't play in the woods, but they understood. Or at least, the eldest did. One night, the little girl went missing. Everyone in the town was looking for her, anxious and terrified that she may have entered the woods. The eldest girl, like all siblings, knew her sister well, and knew that she missed the woods more than anyone. She rushed into the woods after her sister. No one dared go after her. It was too dark and dangerous to venture in. But the girl knew where her sister would have gone, and followed the paths they always would to play, the paths they'd taken many times. She knew the danger she was in, but that didn't deter her, as she also knew the danger her sister was in. Following their routine paths, it wasn't long before she found her sister. Except hers weren't the only eyes that had found her. Stood before her was a giant figure of shadow, flickering like a fire of darkness. The girl yelled to her sister to run, to follow the path, follow the faint cries of the townsfolk, and don't look back. As the little girl ran, she stood her ground, defiantly impeding the Stygian Goliath, as any good sister would. It took all of her bravery not to run, and all of her fear to keep her eyes shut. Yet it all faded when she felt something soft and small gently press against the bottom of her leg. Having regained her ability to move, she looked down to see what it was, and as she did so, it rushed past her leg and sat where the beast once stood. It was a small black cat, with the same glowing eyes as the ghostly monster. Relief was only part of what the girl was feeling. She was filled with a confusing concoction of relief, bewilderment, and caution. She shifted her weight and readied her muscles to approach the cat, but stopped. Behind the cat, she saw a hooded figure eerily emerge from the darkness of the wood. The cat turned to face the figure and began to emanate the shadow from its fur, this time blazing with greater ferocity. But the figure continued to travel forward towards the feline beast, seemingly unafraid. The cat, still in its ghostly form, shot off into the shadow of the wood, away from the cloaked shape. What could possibly scare the scary beast of the wood? Perhaps it wasn't the real monster after all. Never before had a human-like figure struck so much fear into the girl. She knew she could only run. Impulsively, she followed the cat. She did not know why. She should have headed home, back to her sister. But there was something inside her drawing her to the cat, pulling her along. The route was dark. She could barely see her own feet beneath her as she ran, let alone the cat, or even the path before her. Yet still she knew the way. She could feel it. She found the cat, sat on the trunk of a fallen tree, the moonlight radiating its fur like a spotlight. She approached and quietly sat herself down on the tree beside the cat as it basked beneath the moonbeam. As she sat in the company of the cat, an impulse overcame her. The result of a spell all cats can cast, that all humans fall victim to. She knew she shouldn't. She resisted with all her might. She knew it had the power of a terrifying beast, a power that can claim lives. Yet in this shape of a small cat, she couldn't help herself. She stroked the cat. The pair sat together, the cat gently purring beside her, hardly remembering the previous events of the night, just simply admiring the majesty of the sky. Stars filled the night sky like mist in the air, painting a haze of light and colour, as if gazing into a world seen by no other. Colours in their entirety, and colours in their absence, blended as one throughout the sky in a myriad of light. The framing of the trees and a mild breeze, carrying the hooting of an owl and the cat's purr, were the only things to remind them that they were here on Earth, alive in this very moment and every moment. Being. Existing. Nothing more. Tranquility. This was a new and enlightening experience for the girl, but seemed like a regular occurrence for the cat. As the girl returned to reality and presentness, the purring stopped, and the cat spoke to her. "That man's been following me for days. He won't let me return home. Hyacinth must be worried. He must have done something to her. I can't feel her anymore. As her familiar, her magic, like sound and music, draws me to her. But I don't feel it." This feeling resonated with the girl. It sounded similar to her connection to the cat, as it lured her along to the tree. The girl was confused, not because she was alone in the woods with the talking cat and none of it made any sense, but confused as to why it made perfect sense to her. She wasn't surprised by any of it. In fact, it felt right. The cat hopped off of the felled beech and made its way towards the wood. Then it turned. "I will see you again soon," the cat said with absolute certainty. The girl agreed. She felt it too. One of the most confident and comforting goodbyes she had ever had. The girl then stood. It was long past since she ought to have headed home. In fact, if she'd done as she was told, she ought not to have been there at all. But as she did so, she felt the weight of a hand press down on her shoulder. She shot round and backed away in terror. It was the hooded man. He had found her. As he hauntingly stepped into the lunar spotlight, he took off his hood, allowing the moonlight to reveal his features. She knew this face. It was a man from the town. He would tend to the garden not far from her house. He had gone missing several days ago. They thought the monster had taken him. "I'm sorry to frighten you," he said. "I didn't mean any harm. Please, sit with me." They both sat on the same fallen beech, albeit the girl sat a little more sheepishly than she had with the cat. "That cat," he said. "His name is Charlie. He's the familiar of the Witch of the Wood. It seems you know each other." The girl thought it was weird that he had said that, as they had only just met. Yet, still, he was strangely right. She shared a peculiar bond with the cat. "The truth is, Cynthia, well, formerly she went by Hyacinth, she passed away a few days ago. I was a regular customer of hers. She made me potions to help with the flowers in my garden. She was a good woman. But I hadn't heard from her, so I went to check on her. She left a note for me, telling me to look after Charlie. Somehow she knew I'd come. I guess that's witches for you. I'm sure he knows. But he doesn't trust me. But he trusts you." The man stopped. He could see the tears subtly start to form behind the girl's eyes. Some in trepidation, some in relief, some in compassion for her cat friend, as they glistened in the moonlight. Then the man looked away, staring into the gloom of the wood. "I'll stop this now. I'm only causing him more pain." He looked up to the stars. "I'm sorry. I tried." Turning back to face the girl again, he said, "Please, if you can, could you keep an eye on him?" Had the girl just adopted a cat? Regardless of this, The girl empathized with her new furry feline friend. Even at her young age, she knew what it was to lose someone. So of course she agreed to look out for him. Although she didn't really know how she'd go about doing it. This man had been missing for days, so it seems the little cat is notoriously difficult to find. However, she had hope. She knew she would see him again. So even if she at least tried to be there for him, that would be enough. "Thank you," the man said, relieved that the little cat was in good hands. "We should get back. Let me walk you home." The man guided the girl back to the paths she knew, and she took over escorting him for the rest of the way. The town was quiet when they returned. It was late into the night after all. Yet there was still light in the window of her house, and the girl could feel her mother's anxious anticipation through the gaps in the door. As the man left the girl at her door, he turned back, glared at the woods with a comforted and amused glint in his eye, and said to the girl, "I bet she knew this would happen." Then he left, with a smile on his face, leaving the girl to reunite with her family and soothe her mother's worry. The next morning, the girl awoke, with sunlight piercing through the gaps in her short feathery curtains, light streaking across her bed, her floor, and up the walls, to a scratching at the door. But then it stopped. She started to roll out of bed when she saw the handle begin to move. The door gently creaked open, just a little, bending the light streak on the door as it did so. And the cat walked in. To this day, she still has no idea how he manages to open doors. He jumped up onto the bed and curled up next to her, like a little shadow. It was warm here. He did all this without saying a word, only purring. Then she noticed, at the end of her bed, was an old, dark, pointed hat. She smiled gleefully and knowingly. She rested her head back on the pillow and stroked the purring black cat beside her.